healthcare premiums on track to spike.
You can't just do a blanket extension without reforms.
Senate Republicans just shoved the American people off the side of a cliff.
The affordability fight heating up.
They use the word affordability, and that's their only word.
And boat strikes and seizures in the Caribbean drawing scrutiny.
This is not a partisan matter. This is a matter of national security.
This morning, House Democratic Whip Katherine Clark goes on the record about the big issues in Washington and the impact here at home.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
And good morning. It's Sunday, December 14th. I'm Sharman Sacchetti.
And I'm Erica Tarantel. Joining us from Washington, D.C. this morning is House Minority Whip Katherine Clark. She is a Democrat representing the 5th Congressional District of Massachusetts. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Nice to be with you.
Well, thanks for being here. Let's start out with healthcare. The Senate blocked 2 competing plans to stop rising healthcare premiums, and that means tax subsidies for health coverage under the Affordable Care Act will likely expire at the end of the month. What will this mean?
This is devastating for millions of Americans because what we are seeing are premiums are skyrocketing, tripling, quadrupling, and it is aimed at people who need help paying for premiums. And what the Republican Party and Donald Trump have decided to do is to take cuts to health care, whether it's these tax credits or Medicaid, Medicare, veterans benefits, medical research, and take that money and give it in the form of permanent tax cuts to the very wealthy in this country. That is their health care plan. And what we have seen is that they have been absolutely resistant to meeting with us and coming up with solutions that can end this crisis they've created.
The White House press secretary is saying this is a crisis created by Democrats. She says Democrats are the ones who ballooned the ACA with tax credits. Those were her words that were always supposed to be temporary. So do Democrats bear blame for this situation? Weren't these always supposed to be temporary?
You know, what we have seen is that they love to say, you know what, this is the fault of Democrats. And really it comes back down to, do the American people have benefits that are just too rich for them? And they're very clear about what they've done. Do they think that Medicare is paying out too much to our seniors? Do they think that Medicaid is? This is always the excuse, but they never are willing to engage in any of the solutions and reforms that we have offered them. We said to them, extend this program for 1 year and let's have a bipartisan commission. If you are serious, if you think there are improvements, we want to join you in that work.
Well, the Republicans did come up with some solution in their opinion, and that was they wanted these tax credits to expire and they wanted to replace them with an expansion of tax-advantaged health savings accounts, also give direct payments of up to $1,500 to people to buy basic health insurance. So what was wrong with that idea?
Well, first of all, the amounts that they have are totally inadequate. Americans are facing with their rising premiums. And so when we are looking at people going up $1,000 plus a month, a HSA that they have no plan for how they would really deliver these funds, that would, you know, be in terms of around $1,200 to $1,500, doesn't even get people through the first few months of the year under these new premiums.
Yeah, so you froze for a second, so we didn't hear your entire answer, but basically you're saying that amount doesn't match the need?
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
Well, and we have seen the Health Connector, for example. They told us last week 10,000 people locally have dropped their health care coverage in Massachusetts. You are a former state senator, so what will this mean for our state?
It is absolutely devastating for Massachusetts, and we are in one of the better positions around the country. But what we are seeing is the 10,000 people that you referenced. These are real lives. We have right now 60% of households are having a hard time meeting the basics. And when you take a payment like healthcare that is so essential to people's having a quality of life, that ability to be able to get your child to a pediatrician, to get the treatments that you need, to manage chronic disease, when that balloons overnight for you, it puts healthcare out of reach. And when your healthcare is out of reach, that is destabilizing across all your other bills. And we are already seeing a crisis in this country, not only around healthcare and how they have made it, the Republicans, harder and more expensive, but around a basic cost of living.
And I would think, unfortunately, you can understand the frustration and the feeling this has been a problem for years and years and years, and it doesn't seem like a sustainable solution is on the table at this point. We want to move on, though, to the Epstein files. In the headlines yet again, Democrats have released more files from the estate. So how committed are Democrats to making sure they are all released? And is there a concern about the Justice Department redacting files? Of course, some should be redacted to make sure that victim privacy is kept in mind, obviously at the top of mind. But how can you make sure that the public is seeing all of the files they should be able to see?
Yeah, I think that Donald Trump is hoping that the Republican interest in releasing these files is going to continue to be next to zero. And he is hoping the American public are going to turn the page. People want to see these files. Democrats are going to use every tool we have to make sure that the promise that Donald Trump made, the subpoena that he is under, and the law that we passed that he signed requiring him to release these files, that all of that is complied with. I mean, what is he hiding? And we are very concerned at the DOJ that tends to release files with the victims' names included, but never that of the president or other people that he is obviously trying to protect. We don't know what's in those files, but we need to have the public know.
And we do know there are Democrats as well in those files,
That's right.
as well as the president.
And who's ever implicated is implicated. What we need is transparency here. So what we are seeing is that with the files that we can get from the estate, that we are releasing those as we can to make sure that we are keeping the pressure up on this White House to fulfill his promise, to comply with the subpoena, and to comply with the very law that he signed just a month ago.
I want to ask you about Venezuela. Venezuela is now accusing the United States of international piracy after the seizure of an oil tanker off its coast. The Attorney General says the tanker has been sanctioned by the United States because of its involvement in an illegal oil shipping network supporting foreign terrorist groups. The Trump administration points out the president campaigned on taking tough action against drug smugglers. Was the U.S. right to take this step?
You know, what we have here is, again, a complete lack of transparency. And what we have from the Trump administration is a buildup of our troops and our military equipment in the Caribbean, but they are failing to meet their legal obligations to share intelligence with Congress so we can assess what they are doing. They are failing to provide what we call execute orders to keep our Armed Services Committee, our Intel Committee, people who have this oversight obligation informed. And what we are seeing is that this administration feels they can just act all on their own without Congress. It took months before the Secretary of Defense came to Congress just this week to brief people who he is required to brief under law. And what we are seeing from the materials we are able to review is a very shaky legal case.
Okay, can we talk
Donald
about the
Trump-
videos as well? Because they
Yes.
chose to initially release videos of these strikes against alleged drug smuggling boats. And the House has voted in favor of a massive defense bill. At this point, both Democrats, Republicans voting overwhelmingly to approve that measure. And it would withhold a quarter of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's travel budget unless the Pentagon complies with oversight requirements. That includes providing these videos. So why do we need to see these additional videos?
Because it is the context that the American people need and deserve. What we have here is a president who is acting without complying with congressional oversight and what he is required to show. And he said that this infamous second strike, where they knew that they struck a boat, we don't have the intelligence about the targeting or why they chose that boat, but they choose to release segments of these videos. And what they finally saw in an with the Intelligence Committee is the full video that from all accounts shows that there were two people who were shipwrecked, which is the definition that you do not use lethal force. Right. And so Donald Trump said he had, quote, no problem releasing that video. He should stand by that and put his case before the American people.
Our conversation keeps going after the break.